My mom and sister threw a birthday banquet for my niece at a luxury hotel. Every grandkid got a custom gift bag except mine. When my daughter asked why she was ignored, my mom said, "Some kids just don't deserve it." I left without saying a word. What happened next had my sister crying at church. I'm Natalie. I'm 42, divorced, and a single mom to the most incredible 8-year-old girl, Ivy. I've lived in Richmond, Virginia my whole life, just like my family before me. What I'm about to share isn't just a petty revenge story. It's a story about how far a family can fall when love is replaced with image, and how dignity sometimes looks like silence, right before the storm. Growing up, I was never the favorite. My sister, Meredith, the younger one, practically wore a tiara by the time she was 10. She got the shiny birthday parties, the praise, the allowances, the unspoken protection from every consequence. I was the difficult one. I spoke up. I had opinions. I didn't smile when I didn't feel like smiling. And my mother, Lorraine, was the kind of woman who would host a garden luncheon just to outdo someone else's baby shower. She wore matching scarf and glove sets in July. She was sweet tea and shade, all dressed in pearls. After my divorce, when my husband decided being a dad wasn't part of his 10-year plan, I moved into a small 2-bedroom in Chesterfield, started working double shifts at the clinic, and poured every ounce of myself into Ivy. We weren't fancy. We didn't wear monogram sweaters or have country club memberships. But we had love, real love. My mother never saw it that way. She was polite in that surface level, bless your heart kind of way. She'd invite Ivy to family things, but never alone. Always as an accessory to me. And when Ivy started noticing, it got harder to brush off. Still, I bit my tongue for years. But what happened at Sienna's birthday banquet was the last straw. It was a Saturday in early spring. Meredith's daughter, Sienna, was turning 10, and they decided to throw a grand Southern high tea at the Jefferson Hotel, Richmond's most opulent spot. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, the kind of place where a bottle of water costs $10 and they iron the tablecloths mid-meal. Meredith sent out these engraved invitations on thick cream cardstock, tied with little satin bows. When Ivy got hers, she danced around the kitchen. She spent the week before the party picking out her dress. We found a cute blue one on sale at Macy's and even bought little matching barrettes. She was over the moon. The banquet room was unreal, flowers and towering glass vases, a string quartet in the corner playing Disney songs turned classical, and a giant gold balloon arch with Sienna spelled out in cursive across it. Each child had a designated chair with a place card, a mini velvet pillow, and a custom gift bag. These bags weren't just goodie bags, they were deluxe, customized journals, name-stitched scarves, little books, puzzles, and personalized boxes of chocolate. Every child. Except Ivy. Her seat was the only one with no bag. No name card. Just a plain chair. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I looked around, then crouched beside her. "Sweetheart," I said softly, "maybe they forgot to set it out." "I'll go ask." She nodded. She was trying not to look upset, but I saw the shift in her eyes. That little crease of confusion and hurt. I walked over to Meredith, who was laughing with 2 women in pastel sweater sets. I waited until she noticed me and stepped to the side. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice low. "I think Ivy's gift bag got missed." She blinked, looked toward the table, then said casually, "Oh. Yeah. Mom didn't do one for her." Just like that. I was stunned. "What?" "She only made them for the grandkids the ones she wanted to include." I stared at her, trying to register if I'd misheard. Then I went to Lorraine. She stood near the dessert table, inspecting a tiered tray of eclairs like a royal inspecting peasants. I walked over and asked, calmly, why Ivy didn't get a gift bag. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "Some kids just don't deserve it." No emotion. No hesitation. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't make a scene. I turned, walked back to Ivy, leaned down, and whispered, "We're leaving now, honey." She asked, "Did they forget it?" I looked at her, her big hopeful eyes, and just said, "No, baby. But we don't belong here." We walked out of that ballroom, hand in hand, through a sea of fake smiles and clinking silverware. I didn't tell anyone what happened that day. Not at first. We went home. Ivy and I made popcorn, watched a movie, and I told her I'd throw her the best little day of her own the next weekend. But something inside me shifted. A silent line had been crossed. I wasn't going to beg for decency anymore. I wasn't going to keep patching the illusion of family when Ivy was being treated like an afterthought. But I didn't plan revenge. Not right away. It came, naturally. The first ripple came from a woman named Sylvia, one of the other moms at the party, who was friends with Meredith's in-laws. She noticed something was off. Apparently, her son asked why one girl didn't get a bag. Kids notice these things. She filmed the gift bag reveal on her phone and captured the moment Ivy looked around and realized she had nothing. She also, very clearly, caught my mother's voice in the background. Some kids just don't deserve it. Sylvia sent the video to her husband. Her husband shared it in their church small group. And that's where things started to unravel. Meredith and Lorraine are both active members at St. Clair's Episcopal. My mother chairs several charity events and prides herself on being seen as this matriarch of grace and generosity. You can imagine what happened when the clip circulated. Pastor Mendez, who's been quietly skeptical of Lorraine's flair for image over substance for years, chose to address it in the most brutal way possible. He didn't name names. But that Sunday, he stood before the congregation and gave a sermon titled "Love Thy Least Favorite." He spoke about cruelty disguised as etiquette. About favoritism. About children being left out at the hands of people who should know better. And the kicker? He played the audio. He played the actual clip. On the speakers. In church. Meredith called me in tears. Her voice was ragged. "Why would you do this to us?" she sobbed. I was sitting in the car outside Ivy's school. "I didn't send anything," I said calmly. "But maybe ask yourself why someone else felt like they had to." "She's devastated," she whispered. "Mom's saying she won't show her face at church again." "She showed her real face at the party," I said. "The church is just catching up." Meredith kept calling after that Sunday, each message more frantic than the last. I didn't return any of them. I needed time, and honestly, I needed space from the whole damn bloodline. What struck me most wasn't the way she cried or how Mom apparently shut herself inside her house for 3 days, but how neither of them ever said the words Ivy needed to hear: "We were wrong." Instead, Meredith's voicemails were full of deflections. "You could have just said something. We didn't mean to hurt her. Mom didn't think you'd take it personally." Personally? My child was humiliated in front of a room full of people. She was the only kid who left that party empty-handed, and they thought I was the one being too sensitive. Ivy, thankfully, bounced back faster than I did. Kids are resilient like that. We made our own little unbirthday picnic at Maymont Park the next weekend, just the two of us. I let her choose all her favorite snacks from the grocery store: watermelon slices, string cheese, gummy bears. She wore a sparkly cape from Halloween and declared herself Queen of the Meadows. We fed goats, watched peacocks scream into the wind, and laid on a blanket in the sun until she fell asleep on my chest. And that moment, her breathing slow and warm against me, was the reminder I needed. That I didn't need the validation of people who couldn't even show up for her. But things back at church and in their little Richmond circle weren't settling. Word was getting around. The kind of gossip that doesn't come from just one incident, it snowballed. A woman at their book club mentioned how Lorraine had once publicly called another grandchild plain. Someone else recalled how she'd introduced Ivy as Natalie's kid instead of her granddaughter at a charity brunch. Turns out, there was a long trail of micro-cruelties behind my mother's well-pressed smile. People just needed a spark to start seeing it. And the audio? That was the wildfire. One day, Ivy came home from school with a folded note in her backpack. "From Grandma," she said, handing it over like it was a coupon she didn't know what to do with. The paper was thick, perfumed. Lorraine's signature handwriting. Big loopy cursive with perfect spacing. "Natalie, this is all very regrettable. I hope you'll consider putting this behind us for the sake of family unity. You know how appearances matter, especially in our circles. It's time to move forward. I trust you'll do what's best for Ivy and not dwell on things that can't be changed." Lorraine, I reread it twice. Then once more just to confirm: no apology. No accountability. Just more of the same old tone-deaf diplomacy. I didn't show Ivy. She didn't need to see another example of how shallow affection can be. I burned the note in the kitchen sink while stirring spaghetti. It was around then that I got the idea. I hadn't planned on revenge, not initially. But if they wanted so badly to keep up appearances, then I figured I'd give them a real challenge. They were so worried about what people saw on the outside, maybe it was time for everyone to see what was going on behind those Sunday smiles and Instagram-worthy brunches. It started small. Remember Sylvia, the mom who filmed the party? I reached out and thanked her. Then I asked, carefully, if she'd ever noticed other strange behavior around Lorraine and Meredith. Turns out, she had. And she wasn't alone. Within a week, I'd collected 6 separate stories. Small things, but all with the same pattern: favoritism, subtle digs, exclusion. My mother liked to build people up just enough to knock them down and still appear innocent. Then came the newsletter. Yes. A newsletter. Meredith and my mother had a little social group they ran in the fan district, a club called Southern Bloom, all about femininity, faith, and fellowship. Think, overpriced brunches, guest speakers who sold essential oils, matching robes for retreat weekends. I knew they were gearing up for a spring launch and had a fresh digital newsletter that went out to nearly 300 subscribers. I used a throwaway email, disguised as a submission. It was titled Reflection from a Fellow Mother. I wrote, "This month, as we talk about grace, I'd like to share a story of what grace is not. Grace is not treating one child as less than others. Grace is not punishing a mother by using her child as a pawn. Grace is not saying some kids don't deserve it when what they deserve most is love. You may not know the child I speak of, but she was at a birthday party you may have attended. She left empty-handed, but she left with her dignity. Something adults in the room lacked." I attached the voice clip of my mother. They published it. They published it without screening it. And that, my friends, was the final domino. I didn't know they published the newsletter at first. It was Meredith's friend Daphne who told me, though she didn't realize I was behind it. She called me in a frenzy 2 days later. "Did you see what someone submitted to the Bloom newsletter?" she hissed into the phone, like I was supposed to be as outraged as she was. It was about that birthday party. The one for Sienna. Someone aired the whole thing out. I mean, they even included the audio, Nat. You could hear Lorraine clear as day. I faked just enough confusion to keep her talking. "Wait, they actually put that in the newsletter?" "Yes. I'm telling you, the whole list heard it. Meredith is losing her mind. She's convinced someone hacked the submissions. Lorraine wants to sue the hosting site." I muttered a quiet, "Wow," and hung up not long after, citing a bad signal. By nightfall, the newsletter had been pulled offline. But the damage had been done. People talk, and when you try so hard to build your life like a flawless scrapbook, one torn corner is all it takes for people to see how thin the pages are. And it wasn't just strangers reacting now. Extended family started reaching out. Cousin Georgina from Roanoke messaged me, "Was that story about Ivy?" Jesus, Nat. I had no idea. My Uncle Ray, who hadn't spoken to me since my divorce, called and left a voicemail. "Didn't realize things were that bad between y'all. That's really messed up. Ivy's a great kid." Even Aunt Val, the gatekeeper of all family drama, posted a cryptic Facebook status that said, "Some folks forget that children remember how you made them feel." With a flower emoji. She might as well have tagged Lorraine. It was a slow-motion implosion. And I didn't even have to lift another finger. Meanwhile, Ivy and I just lived. We went to the farmer's market every Saturday. She made a new best friend at school, Layla, a fellow bookworm who loved horses and hated lima beans. I finally took that pottery class I'd been eyeing for years. Every so often, I'd get updates about the fallout through the grapevine, but I kept quiet. I didn't need an audience. I had my daughter. That was all the validation I ever needed. But the quiet wouldn't last long. One Thursday afternoon in late April, I got a knock at my front door. I wasn't expecting anyone. Ivy was at a sleepover, and I was halfway through folding laundry when the knock came again, harder this time. When I opened it, Meredith was standing on the porch. She looked wrecked. Her mascara had bled down to the edges of her cheeks, and she held a wrinkled copy of the Bloom newsletter, printed out in full color, like a murder weapon. She didn't say anything right away, just stared at me with a kind of broken fury. I didn't say anything either. I waited. "You humiliated us," she said finally. "No," I replied evenly. "Y'all did that yourselves." She took a step forward, holding out the newsletter. You wrote this. Don't lie to me. I know your tone. The way you phrased things, this is you. I didn't deny it. I just looked her in the eye. Calm. Controlled. Maybe that pissed her off more. Mom hasn't left her house in 2 weeks, she hissed. That's 2 weeks more reflection than she's had in years. She's not the villain you think she is. I crossed my arms. She looked my daughter in the eye and told her she didn't deserve a gift bag. I'm not thinking about anything. I watched it happen. Meredith's mouth opened, then closed again. Her fingers trembled. Do you know how hard I work to keep things running smoothly? To make sure Mom stays happy? To balance everything? That's not balance, Mir, I said quietly. That's codependence. And it's poisoned everything. She looked like she wanted to throw the newsletter at me, but instead she just crumpled it in her hands. I didn't realize how cruel it was until after. I swear I didn't. I didn't answer. She swallowed, hard. Sienna asked why Ivy doesn't come around anymore. You can tell her the truth, I said. That the grown-ups failed. Meredith stood there for a long time. I could see it, all the conflict swirling behind her eyes. The panic. The unraveling of a life built on polite lies. And then, just before turning to go, she said something I didn't expect. She loves you, you know. Mom. In her own twisted way. I nodded. Maybe. But Ivy doesn't need that kind of love. And neither do I. She left without another word. I closed the door and leaned against it, exhaling a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for 15 years. Life quieted down after Meredith's visit, at least for a while. Ivy thrived. Summer rolled in thick and warm over Richmond, and with it came fireflies, popsicles, and Ivy running barefoot through sprinklers in the backyard. She was happier, lighter. And so was I. But deep down, I still felt the unfinished edge of it all, like a book left half-closed on a shelf. My mother and Meredith may have felt the sting of embarrassment, but they hadn't changed. They hadn't truly reckoned with what they did. Not really. They just lost control of the narrative. And people like them? They hate that more than anything. Then in August, I got a call that gave me the perfect opportunity for closure. Real, satisfying closure. It came from the director of a local nonprofit, the Richmond Women's Coalition, a network I used to volunteer with years ago, before the divorce and before life got too heavy. They were organizing their annual fall fundraiser, a public event with silent auctions, speeches, and a community service awards ceremony. They invited me to speak. Apparently, one of the board members had heard about the newsletter incident, and how I'd quietly stood up for my daughter without fanfare or dragging everyone into public mud. She said it was the kind of integrity young women need to see. I hesitated at first. I wasn't looking to wave a flag or give a TED talk. But then I asked, almost offhandedly, who else is speaking? There was a pause on the other end of the line. Well, the director said, your mother, Lorraine, was invited to present the Volunteer of the Year award. She's still scheduled. My lips parted slightly. Not in shock, no. In satisfaction. I smiled. I'd love to speak, I said. And just like that, my opportunity arrived on a silver platter. The event was held at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. Ivy came with me, wearing her favorite yellow dress and a little sunflower clip in her curls. I told her it would be a long night and she could bring a book if she got bored. She didn't need it. The banquet room buzzed with the usual genteel crowd, philanthropists, business owners, local leaders. Meredith was there, standing beside my mother, both dressed in elegant neutrals like they were preparing for a photo shoot. The second Lorraine saw me walk in, her smile faltered for half a second. I held her gaze, nodded once, and kept walking. The program moved along, a welcome toast, a youth dance performance, an update on the coalition's community outreach. Then it was my turn. I stepped onto the small stage, adjusted the mic, and took a slow breath. Good evening. My name is Natalie Harper. I'm a single mother, a nurse, and a proud Richmond native. A few polite claps. What you may not know, I continued, is that I've spent the last few years learning not just how to raise a daughter, but how to protect her spirit from people who believe love should be conditional. I didn't look at my mother, but I felt her stillness. I told the room a story. Not with names. Not with malice, but with clarity. I told them about a little girl who was the only child at a party who didn't receive a gift bag. I told them how that child was made to feel invisible, how the people around her smiled and went on, pretending nothing was wrong. I spoke slowly, carefully. Like I was turning the truth into a mirror and letting the audience decide whether they saw their own reflection in it. And then I finished with this: you don't have to scream to make a difference. Sometimes, all you have to do is walk away with dignity, and refuse to come back until you're treated like you matter. That little girl taught me that. I gestured to Ivy, who was beaming from her seat, her little feet kicking gently beneath her chair. The applause was long. A few people stood. I stepped down from the stage and walked straight past Lorraine, who was next in line to present. When she stepped up to the mic, her voice was shaky. Not loud. And for the first time in my life, she didn't seem in control. She fumbled through the award presentation, skipped half her prepared remarks, and rushed off the stage like she was walking through fog. Later that night, several women came up to me, thanking me, saying how the story reminded them of their own childhoods, or how they'd stayed quiet when someone was cruel to their child out of fear of family fallout. I didn't stay late. Ivy was getting tired, and I was ready to go home. As we gathered our things, Meredith came up to us in the coat room. Her expression was unreadable. "Ivy," she said gently, "you looked so beautiful up there." "Thank you," Ivy said, polite but cool. Meredith looked at me, then. "She's going to grow up strong." "She already is," I replied, helping Ivy into her cardigan. And then, quietly, sincerely, Meredith whispered, "I'm sorry." I looked her in the eye, and for the first time in a very long time, I believed her. "It's a start," I said. Then I took Ivy's hand and walked out into the night. The crisp fall air kissed my cheeks, and Ivy squeezed my hand a little tighter as we crossed the parking lot. "Mom," she said. "Were you nervous?" I smiled. "A little. But you didn't show it." "Sometimes," I said, "courage just looks like telling the truth and standing still while people hear it." She didn't say anything else, just nodded. We got in the car. I turned on the heat, flipped through the radio until Ivy found a station playing one of her favorite songs, and we drove home, windows up, hearts full, past the museum, past the lights, and into a life that finally felt free.